This evil behavior and those bone-chilling social media messages from the shooter raising questions over whether this tragedy is part of a broader cultural problem among our youth. Joining us now is Congressman Pat Fallon from the House Oversight and Reform Committee from the great state of Texas, along with Heritage Foundation Tech Policy Center Director Kara Frederick. Good to see you both. Thank you for being here. Congressman, before we get into the details of what happened and what to do about it, if there's anything that can be done about it, I want to focus on the big picture, a very bigger picture, which is the social ills that plague America right now. And I can think of just three off the top. First, the breakdown of the American family. This kid came from a broken home, as so many Americans do, and it's happening more. The broken homes are growing in America. The lack of faith in our communities, that I think also plays a big role in this, that allows for the spread of evil. And I know it's not fashionable to say that, but clearly I can't think of another word than evil to describe this attack. And then the folks, the crap, forgive me, but that people get sucked into on social media. And again, that's a problem that seemed to plague the shooter in this instance. How do you address that larger issue, those larger issues?
You know, David, you took the words right out of my mouth as far as some of the problems that we're facing that are just unique. And, you know, when we were growing up, I never remember hearing about any school shootings. It was just something that wasn't part of the culture at all, unfortunately, or fortunately then. And unfortunately now, we do see a breakdown of the family, and we see a breakdown of you know, the faith, quite frankly. And what social media has done, it's really made people antisocial with social interaction. We don't ever, these folks that commit these evil acts are almost always loners. They're not the popular folks. They're not people that have a healthy social life. And that's something that we need to talk about when we need to address moving forward as a society.
Of course, there hasn't been a social, healthy life with the pandemic and all the lockdowns for about 2 years. And that's part of the problem, too. Apparently, this guy dropped out of school in the middle of all that. I don't know whether the lockdowns themselves played a role. But, Kara, Texas's Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, spoke to this larger point that we're trying to get to as well in this segment. And I just want to run, it's a fairly large soundbite from Laura Ingram's show last night, and then I'll come back to you. First, roll tape.
This problem is a much larger problem than the infrastructure, the gun issue, the mental health issue. This is and all those are important. But at the end of the day, Laura, we are in a sick society where we are at each other's throats all the time. Everywhere you look, we are just, whether it's on the internet, whether it's in any walk of life, people are just at each other every day. And we have to ask ourselves who we are. And I believe we're a nation of godly people, and godly people need to pray. You cannot change the culture of a country without changing the character of the people, and you just cannot change character without changing a heart, and you can't do that without turning to God.
Kara, it's kind of a perfect storm for these social ills that lead to these awful massacres that we've seen too much of.
Exactly. All three of you are exactly right. And what we need to do is we need to get comfortable talking about these issues in moral terms, especially when it comes to social media use and the big tech issues. We talk about it through an economic lens. We talk about it through a political and electoral lens. But we need to talk about it, what it does to the moral fabric of our country, and particularly our kids. Study after study after study has shown that there is, at the very least, correlation between children using social media and their life satisfaction. We know that social media lights a fire under these social contagions. We know that it increases atomization. And we also know that these big tech companies are deliberately designing their products to target younger generations, like preteens, with addictive properties. So we need to talk about it in that regard. We need to infuse our technology with morals, with values, with our God-given ideas and rights. So talking about it in just very staid economic and political terms is no longer acceptable. This is a moral and a cultural issue.
Well, and our leaders have to talk about it with a sense of civility and not make things worse by screaming at each other. Congressman, we just saw an example of that today with Senator Schumer over in not in your house, but in another house close by, going after the Luke and Alex School Safety Act. That was worked on by families of the Parkland shooting, and he said GOP Senator Johnson just tried for a bill that could see more guns in schools, so I blocked it. The truth, there were officers at the school in Texas. The shooter got past them. We need real solutions. We will vote on gun legislation starting with the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act. Well, that was kind of a misdescription of what the Luke and Alex School Safety Act was all about. And so Marco Rubio answered back. He said, the truth, Schumer blocked a bipartisan bill that makes the school safety clearinghouse, school safety government permanent because radical left-wing activists oppose it. So how are we going to get anywhere inside the Beltway when you have screaming matches like that?
Well, David, we do need to change the culture in Washington. I mean, that's for sure. And because not everything is partisan, and it's very sad to see and very unfortunate to see some people in positions of power using this as political currency, this tragedy with 21 innocent souls lost, and really with the teacher's husband dying of a heart attack today, 22 souls lost. We can't have real solutions here. We do need to harden schools, and we need to leverage technology. I was on a city council 13 years ago, and our entire city had all of our schools wired, every classroom, every hallway, everything. And that was integrated with the police and law enforcement. So in cases like this would be a great aid and benefit. We also need to change the doctrine of law enforcement. So, children aren't being held hostage by a gunman or, for 90 minutes. We need to be able to address these things with rapid response. And I'm also very much in favor of school marshals as well, because, David, the more firearms that are in the hands of law-abiding citizens, the safer we all are.
Right, right. Well, Kara, before we had these social ills that I call them ills, a lot of people say they're progress, but, I think we should get back to some of the family values that we used to have. We used to have kids walk around with guns. I remember a kid with a rifle going on a subway in New York because there was a rifle club at his high school. I mean, you had stuff like that was going on, and people weren't thinking two ways about it. But in fact, nowadays, when you add social media and you add all these other ills in there, it's just such a toxic combination. The Uvalde shooter put his intentions on the internet when he was in the midst of the massacre. First the massacre at his home, and then going to school and do it. Was there anything that social media companies could have done to flag that?
Yeah, companies are getting much more sophisticated when it comes to this. They are using artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques to detect things like suicidal ideation in posts and then instigate wellness checks by law enforcement. So in my estimation, if these companies are doing that, if YouTube is taking down live streams of people at gospel conferences because of content moderation issues, then they can get on these live streams a lot quicker than they have in the past. So there are technical solutions to this, and tech companies should focus on those.
All right, we got to leave it at that, but there's obviously a lot more to talk about concerning this issue. Congressman Fallon, Kara Frederick, good to see you both. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.